Alright guys, hey, welcome back, Beard Battalion. So in this video, what I'm going to be doing is showing you guys how to create the pumpkin that you see on your screen. Because today, of all days, is Halloween! And what better way to test some of the skills and some of the brushes that I've taught so far than to use them to create a jack-o'-lantern on this very scary day. Alright, that was dumb. But for real though, we are going to be doing this jack-o'-lantern. It's going to be fun. And because of where this is falling in the course, I'm only going to be using the brushes that we've talked about so far. So that would be the draw brush, the clay strips brush, and the layer brush. Now, there are better ways to make a jack-o'-lantern, including using Dentopo and some of the other brushes. But since where this is falling in this course, for the first use these brushes tutorial, we're only going to be using those 4 brushes. All right, cool. So without further ado, we're going to start a new Blender thing, and then we'll get started. Also, hey, let me know if you guys like this video format with me as a face cam, because if you do, I will record more videos like this. In fact, I kind of like it, so I think I'm even going to switch to it, but unless you definitely don't want me in the video, let me know down in the comments below. And thanks for liking and subscribing and all of that jazz. Who cares? Let's get on to the tutorial. Alright guys, so we're going to go ahead and start off here and just switch to using my pen, and we're going to go ahead and start in a new sculpting workflow. Now, the first thing we want to do is bring in our reference image. Now, you guys don't have access to this reference image because it's a pumpkin that I actually carved like 4 or 5 years ago, and I'm not going to give out that that image to everybody. But basically, go find your own image of a jack-o'-lantern, and you can kind of follow along using the design of that jack-o'-lantern instead of the design of mine. So there we go. All right, cool. So we're going to go ahead and bring in that reference image, but I can't do that from the sculpting workflow. So what I actually have to do is I have to go up to the top here and add in the general just kind of layout workflow area. And I'm just going to see if I can move that over. No. Okay, maybe I can. Yeah, so we're going to reorder this to the front. So it'll go layout, sculpting, and then shading, which should be pretty easy. So, okay, cool. So now I'm going to go ahead and add in this reference image, which if you have seen the how to load in a reference image should be familiar with you. If you have not, I'm going to basically show you right now. So all we're going to do, hit Shift A, and then image and reference, and then it's just going to come up and say, hey, where do you want to go? Now, I've downloaded this, and I've gone to it before, so it's in my recents. Otherwise, you would just navigate to wherever that reference image is. So then we'll select the pumpkin, and we'll load in that reference image. Now, that reference image gets added in the direction that we are facing, and then at the 3D cursor. So you'll notice that if we bring up the in properties here, that it's already got some rotations applied. 63.5 degrees on the X, 0.76 on the Y, and 0.58, just so that it could align with the view that we're currently looking at. So I'm going to go ahead and set all of these back to 0. All right, and then just rotate that 90 degrees on the X, because when we look at this from the front view, this reference image is kind of what we want to see. So what I'll do then, I'll just come over to the properties panel and move it back along the, yeah, that should be in the negative. Oh, we'll move it back along the Y so that when we look at it in the front view, it's kind of off to the behind us there. And then we'll just move it over to the side. So now when we go back to the sculpting workflow, we can see the reference image, we can see our what's going to become our pumpkin, and everything is great. So, all right, now let's select the quad sphere that we started off with, go into our sculpting workflow, and we can go ahead and get started. All right, so the first thing that I really want to do is trying to get the basic shape of the pumpkin down. Now, basically, I have chosen a pumpkin that is, you know, pretty round, so I don't have to do much changing here at all on the base shape of the pumpkin, but whenever you get started with sculpting something, you want to make sure you're getting that base shape down. Well, since we already kind of have that base shape, what I'm going to go ahead and do is just kind of flatten out the top, flatten out the bottom, and then we're going to add in those pumpkin ridges before we start taking away any of the pieces of our jack-o'-lantern. So I'm going to grab the clay strips brush, and we're just going to make sure that the strength and size are unified, which it is. And then basically we're going to look at the kind of top area and lower the strength down a bit, and then just kind of flatten out this top. Okay. Now with mirror being on, we are flattening it. I don't want to flatten it too much, and now I'll just go ahead and smooth that. Remember that the smooth brush or the smoothing effect can be applied with any brush as long as you're holding the shift key. All right, now we'll go to the bottom, kind of do that same thing on the bottom here, where we'll just take out chunks of the bottom and then smooth it. Okay, no big deal. So now we kind of have a flat base a little bit and a flatter top. And now all we have to do is add in these ridges. Now, since we're using the clay brush and the clay brush performs kind of an addition of a rectangular pattern like you can see here, we're just going to use the clay brush and kind of lightly go all the way around, not really caring about the ridges that we're creating. Some deep, some not so deep. But as you can see, it's already getting this kind of wrinkled effect like we see on the pumpkin image behind us. So we'll just kind of lightly go over this and then come back over areas and just try to get what we hope would be a realistic wrinkle of the pumpkin flesh. And like I said, this is just going to give us kind of a neat base area, and then we can kind of bring this up to the top here and continue these things down, trying to get that middle, and we'll smooth it out lightly because these ridges exist, but we don't want them to be, too predominant as it gets towards the top. We'll do the same thing as it comes down to the bottom, just for, I guess, symmetry's sake. So we'll take that in, kind of smooth that down. And as we look at this pumpkin, we can see some pretty nice details and ridges on it already from the work that we've done. But what I'm going to do just to kind of even it up a little bit more, I'm just going to lower that strength down and then make the kind of brush size a bit smaller. And then I'm going to kind of dig away at some of these areas. And you can't really see the effect of what I'm doing too much because the brush size is small and the strength is light, but it's kind of just adding these extra little bumps there. And then I'll go ahead and just start kind of smoothing things out so it doesn't look too ridiculous or too stretched out from our vertices, since we're working just with all the vertices that were created on the very first pass through of creating the quad sphere, when we don't have any extra vertices being created from dynamic topology. We'll smooth out this little kind of edge that we created around the bottom, and maybe come up here to the top and try to smooth out that transition as well. Okay, cool. So that's basically the base. We have our deep ridges, or some of our ridges. We've got this what kind of looks like this pumpkin. Now you can get a lot more detailed with this. You could kind of come in here and add in some details. You could take the draw brush and let's make the brush even smaller and increase the strength just a bit. And you could take the draw brush and kind of make these real creases go in deeply, but I don't really, it doesn't really matter that much, because what people are really going to see is the face that we're going to draw into it, and not so much all of these extra little curvatures and bumps and stuff. But these things are nice to have. All right, so we're going to work on the face now, and for that, we're going to use the layer brush, which I know in that video I talked a lot about how to use the layer brush for terrain, but the layer brush actually does have some real application uses, and so I want to show those off now. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to grab that layer brush, and then remember that the layer brush is affected by the height. So I've gone ahead and moved the height down to 0.15, but it'll start at 0.4. So make sure you move that height down to 0.15, maybe to 0.2, depending on how much of the jack-o'-lantern you want to move away. It's probably not a great idea to take it to the to the extreme depth, but that all depends on what you're planning to do with this jack-o'-lantern. If you're planning to just kind of carve away at the inside, fine, this is good enough. But if you really want to eventually retop this and create a hollowed out jack-o'-lantern, then you would probably want to do a higher height value for the layer brush. The last thing we're going to do before we start carving this is we're going to turn on annotations. Now, annotations are important, and I haven't talked about them yet in this course, but this annotation brush down here at the bottom is really one of the most useful things you can use in sculpting and retopology. And I'll get a little bit more into the annotation brush in a future video as the need arises. But basically what this is going to let you do is if you hold the D key on your keyboard, you can basically draw kind of whatever you want, and then you can use that drawing as a guide for your sculpting. Now, the annotations get placed a little differently based on their placement up at the top. And you actually have a couple of different things you can do with the annotation brush, like create different colors, one for notes, and you can use different colors for different purposes. We'll talk a lot more about that when we get into retopology, because the annotation tool is like seriously the best thing you can use for doing retopology and planning it out. And then you've got the placement, and by default placement is at the 3D cursor. And we don't want to do that because I'll show you why. If we draw here and we try to give ourselves kind of a outline for how we want these strokes to be placed, if we then rotate around our pumpkin, you can see that the strokes that we've done have been placed on the 3D cursor's line. In fact, if we go back to the layout, you can actually see that they're lined up with the 3D cursor at the angle that we were viewing them at. But that's not super effective for what we're trying to do, because we want to actually use these annotations as a guide for where we need to sculpt. So we'll go back to the front view here, and we're going to change this to surface. Now, what this allows us to do is to stick the drawings that we do onto the surface of the mesh. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to draw out the eye, and just kind of a rough outline. But as I rotate, you can see that that annotation stays on that mesh. So it's going to actually give us a really nice area for where we can expect to draw. And then with this mouth, you kind of want to draw out whatever mouth you want to do. I'm going with the jack-o'-lantern Jack Skellington style. So we're just going to kind of create these ridges here and kind of use these as a guide for the layer brush. But it's not perfect. It doesn't have to be. It's really just kind of map this out, and I'm not very good at drawing. So here we go. In fact, I'm going to make this eye just a little bit bigger. And there we go. All right, I think that's a little bit bigger. I hope it's not the exact same size. That would be dumb. All right, cool. And now we can go back to the layer brush with the strength set before to say 0.31. But remember, the strength doesn't matter for the layer brush. It's the height. So the height, again, is 0.15. And then we'll just set this to a negative brush. Now, you could hold control the entire time you're sculpting this, but since we're just carving away at a jack-o'-lantern, we'll just set it to a negative brush, and then we'll start carving. And remember that the layer brush will move these vertices down. So as you pull away your mesh, you don't want to pick up your pen, or if you're using a mouse, you don't want to remove or release the click of your brush. So we have these eyes here. They're a little close, so we're going to undo that. I'm going to switch back to the annotation. And actual fun fact, you can access the annotation brushes just by holding the D key using any brush. So we're going to make that eye significantly bigger, kind of farther away, and we'll restroke that there, and maybe come up with a smaller nose hole here. You don't have to get perfect. You just have to kind of try. Cool. And then we can use the layer brush one more time and create our eye socket. Everything is good. Make sure as you go around it that it's kind of all going down that 0.15 meters. And then we can smooth that out if we want, but I'm good with it right now. And we'll take out the nose area, but I will make the brush a little smaller. That's too close, so we'll take that and kind of go like that. That should be fine. And for the last part, we're going to go ahead and dig out this whole piece. But the thing that we're going to do, because the teeth are there, I've got to keep my brush kind of small so I can get these teeth created. So we're going to kind of make our stroke here. And as I go around, remember, do not pick up your brush. Don't release your mouse click. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of dig out this area of the smile and then make sure all of the vertices go down. This would be a lot easier with a bigger brush radius, but nevertheless, we're going to get it done. All right, we'll go over these vertices, make it smaller. And then we'll come up and do the teeth. So we'll come up and make a tooth mark here, and then maybe a tooth mark there, and a tooth mark there, maybe one here, maybe one all the way out here, and then we'll come back down and kind of put them in. One would hope where it's going to look good. I picked up my brush. Okay, no biggie. We'll just take that down. We'll end up smoothing these things out when all is said and done. All right, now that looks a little weird, and we can go ahead and turn off these annotations and see what our sculptor actually looks like. Now that doesn't look too bad. It also doesn't look too great. So we're going to come in here and kind of clean this up with smoothing a little bit. And we'll smooth this out. Maybe take that layer brush down, smooth, increase the size of my brush, smooth it out so that we're getting this nice kind of even transition here. And as you zoom away, you get the actual cool effect of the pumpkin. Because when you get up close and personal, you know, these vertices, if we switch into edit mode, these vertices are starting to pinch pretty badly in some of these corners, and they're stretching and kind of, you know, piercing each other, which is mesh shearing, and you don't want mesh shearing a whole lot. So we'll just call this done for now. Ultimately, you'd want to spend a little bit more time and use some different brushes to really make those cuts perfect. I would suggest the pinch brush and the crease brush if you were really working on this. But the last thing we need to do is create for ourselves the stem on the top of the pumpkin. And so for that, what I'm going to do is just switch to the clay strips brush, jack our strength up, and then go up to the brush settings and turn on accumulate. Now with accumulate turned on, all I'm going to do is kind of make this stroke and in the center here, and that's just going to keep moving our brushes up, and that'll give us something, but that's kind of going in a weird direction. So we will add on to the back here and maybe go towards the sides, maybe increase the kind of width of how this thing is getting pulled out. Now it's not awesome, so we'll go ahead and smooth that back down and maybe smooth that transition. I don't know. Kind of dumb looking. That's okay. We'll take in with the, well, we'll check how many vertices we have. We don't have a ton of vertices here because of how kind of this got added. So there's not a lot that we can do at this point without turning on dynamic topology. And since I haven't covered that, I'm not allowed to use it in this video. So that looks kind of dumb. So we're going to undo those steps here, get that back down to normal. Let's check out where these vertices are at. They're pretty dense. And we're just going to redo that because I was not happy with how that turned out. So we'll kind of make this X pattern here, which I'm hoping will do a lot more for keeping vertices kind of intact and making it look not as bad or dumb. And that actually had a cool effect of kind of making it like how the reference image, kind of these things strip down into the arc. We can actually lower the strength here and kind of make that a little bit more prominent. of an edge coming down into that area. And smoothing. All right, so it's not perfect. It's not completely terrible either, you know? So this is just how to use these 4 brushes and to give you some understanding for how sculpting really can go, and maybe you know, to give you an insight into how a sculptor starts to think about some of these models. And as I'm looking at it from a distance, I can see that these the interior of the face here, or these eyes, need to be kind of smoothed out because they're not all there. So we'll smooth that out and come along that ridge and just kind of smooth that transition a little bit. You can do the same thing in the nose area and smooth it out a little bit among the teeth as well. And there you have it. So there you have it. Happy Halloween, guys. Enjoy the jack-o'-lantern. Actually, if you want to screenshot that and tweet me your jack-o'-lanterns, I would be really happy to see what you guys had created and see if you guys could pull off something better in this short amount of time than I had for your own stuff. So it's been fun. It's been real. I'm Sir Pinkbeard. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in that next video.